Hey, welcome back to the channel. It's awesome that you're tuning in. In today's video, we are going to take a close look at the RG35XXSP. That's absolutely a mouthful. But what are you actually going to be doing with these devices? So the RG35XX is more like a lineup, and then we're having all kinds of models like the H, the SP, or let's say a landscape version, a horizontal version or Game Boy version, and this is the SP. And maybe this can be the best handhelds out there when it comes to the, let's say, clamshell design, the one that we've been waiting for many years now. 4 different colors: the silver gray, blue translucent and the black translucent, or the transparent they called it. I did get myself the silver one, so let's take a close look at it today. I'm really curious about it. I've been seeing all kinds of videos coming by and I really was looking forward to check it out, because this thing is maybe one of the best clamshell designs that they have released in the last maybe couple of years. We have seen many devices like the, I think was the, let's say the Powkiddy V19, also sold as, let's say, different kind of, let's say, models, but it was an interesting, let's say, cool clamshell tiny design. And Anbernic is a company that sells all kinds of, let's say, devices that are more like high quality, just like better quality, like your typical Powkiddy or another one of the things. And the consistency of quality, that is I'm looking forward. And what can we expect? So the clamshell design itself, here you can just see the angle, and this thing goes all the way to the back. Different positions. You can just see over here that it will stay in a certain position if you want to. So that's absolutely great. But let's do a quick look inside the box itself. Nowadays we're not getting a lot when it comes to Anbernic. So this time we do have different configurations. You can see over here we have 2 slots, one for the firmware. So the configuration, I think it's quite nice, because we can flash or reflash the first one for different firmwares if you want to, and keep the other one for, like, say, the other files like the ROMs and everything else. So they did give me like 128 gigabyte. This is not an overall, let's say, premium brand, so I don't know if this is going to be any good. So that's something we're going to be looking at later on. So we're having the wipes, the screen protector, and they are giving you very nice toilet paper manuals nowadays. So with some good explanation how everything works. And sometimes it comes very handy, simply because of the configuration of certain, let's say here you can see like the emulator shortcuts, and I mean when you need to adjust the volume, brightness and etc. But yeah, 2 languages, everything is very nice. And then here we're having the cable. The Game Boy SP, I personally never owned it when it just came out. I think it was years later I've bought one in combination with the GBA itself. So when it comes to like the device, the first impression that it is quite positive. It feels quite heavy. I think it also mainly has to do with the internal battery that also comes with a very nice weight. HDMI out, we have even an OTG port and a USB, so I'm guessing you can even connect with a converter different controllers. We're having shoulder buttons, and I love it when we're having the shoulder button in different height. That makes it absolutely so much easier to press. So the press itself is more like a micro switch, all of them. So the travel itself, you can see that the L2 and the R2 has a little bit of more wiggle to it, but nothing like negative. Powering on, here having the reset, so if there's something problematic with it, you can reset it fairly easy. 2 SD slots, and headphone jack, volume control, and I love it that they implemented, let's say, in headphone jack. So I already mentioned before, like the hinge of this thing. So there was no analog stick. I did notice some people saying this in the, let's say, preview video I've made on the, let's say, channel, and yeah, they said like, hey, some people were disappointed. I completely understand. I'm a D-pad guy, so I'm very glad with this. So it's a micro switch D-pad, and yeah, what you're getting is also with a nice curve. So I'm very curious how this is going to be playing. Select and start, ABXY, and all have this like micro switch. Click to it, and the M for menu button. But let's power it on, let's turn it on, and let's see how it is when it comes to the overall performance and the menu itself. So the device is charged up. It will take up a couple of, let's say, seconds to actually boot up into the menu, because this thing comes preloaded with some firmware. Yep, I think I need to add ourselves an SD card. Completely forgot that. Braveheart. So let's boot it up with the SD card implemented, and the menu is similar to all the, let's say, the RG35XX models. So I'm looking forward to have like different emulator, or at least like different front end that looks more fancy, because when it comes to the original software, you can just see it's kind of messy, and I mean particularly when you're looking at the different kind of options. So the first menu over here is the game room, the RA game or the RetroArch, favorite, history, search, the App Center, settings, and that's it. What's kind of interesting that we do have all kinds of settings that we can adjust, system information, the lockdown, EO testing, the brightness can be adjusted. And I can tell you this thing goes quite bright. Let's leave it on 3 for the video. Over here having the time and date and some other settings. Even having the option for network settings here, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi settings and Moonlight. I'm guessing that the Moonlight streaming. You can shut it down if you want to, reboot it from here, change out the background and etc. So the App Center is kind of interesting but also weird at the same time. We're finding over here music, video, ebook, file manager and some apps. And here we can even go to the certain SD card if you want to. Searching, so let's see if it's going to be working like it should be. So let's search for Sonic like I'm always doing. Press OK. And what is kind of cool, so in here it will showcase what kind of, let's say, emulator it is, but also if it's located in the game room folder or in the RetroArch, also going to be played through the RetroArch. So the menu with the preview, everything looks kind of cool, and this is absolutely nice. But let's take a close look at the game rooms. So what is new about this, that we have the option for, let's say, SD card 1. For example, I'm going to PlayStation Portable. And here we see all kinds of games. But if you're going to the second card, going to choose PSP, we have different games over here. So you can divide the games over two kind of, let's say, cards if you want to. But what can we actually play? PlayStation 1, PlayStation Portable will be a mixed overall experience. That's most of the time with these things. And having virtual arcade games, all kinds of arcade. We have all kinds of platforms, like 8-bit, 16-bit, and a lot of handhelds. So that's kind of cool. But it's going to be the same kind of options when you're looking at the first SD card. So when it comes to, let's say, the different kind of stuff you can play, and of course, we have the RetroArch, it's the same stuff going on. But in here, we're finding some different emulators like Dreamcast. Atari is in here, even the Mega CD. Nintendo DS. So in here, I find it kind of a little bit of a mess. I wish they went for like this is just the way that we have both of the things, or at least the emulators on one page, but this is actually how it is out of the box. Pressing the menu button will give you the menus for making quick load, quick save. With the PlayStation Portable, it will be the PPSPP emulator. With RetroArch, will be RetroArch, and with the game rooms, we're having a special, let's say, created menu with all kinds of features. So in here, we can mess around with the, let's say, rendering resolution and all the other stuff like frame skipping if it's going to be needed. So you can basically configure every single game if you want to. So we can make a quick load, quick save, or we can just make a save like that. If that's going to be working in the end, that is another thing. I personally would use, let's say, the quick load and quick save situation over there. So much more convenient. But let's do the test, and let's do a double test. First of all, PlayStation Portable, and let's see how the D-pad responds. So it's more of your liking and clicky D-pad, but I can tell you it plays absolutely great. So this is just a win for this device. Great D-pad, the shoulder buttons are fairly easy to touch, and the overall design, I just love it. So what's kind of cool is that this PlayStation Portable game is not made for a display like this, but it looks absolutely amazing. And the mono speaker that is in here sounds just great. And it goes pretty loud. But let's just push this thing to the limit. So when you're looking at, let's say, God of War, it's a really demanding game. And out of, let's say, the box, I really know this is not going to be like a superb, let's say, overall experience. And that is simply to do because, first of all, this game is just way too much for handling a device like this. So you can see that it's running on 20 FPS. So what we can actually do, if you want to, you can just go to the menu. I'm pressing the wrong button. Absolutely. Oh, annoying. Well, let's say frame skip 1, and we can just manage around with it and just go, let's say, try to play it. But yeah, there is no analog stick, so we need to configure the analog stick to the D-pad and go messing around with it. But when it comes to PlayStation 1, we do have this audio delay. So that is quite unfortunate. I just want to also show you the menu over here. So pressing the M button is a different menu than the PlayStation Portable, but of course we're using a completely different, let's say, way how you can just navigate through the menu, but also a different emulator. So you can change that to BIOS if you want to, and you can mess around with it. But the unfortunate thing is we still have that audio delay out of the box. And it's a little bit of a, let's say, downside that they keep, let's say, doing the same mistakes. like we have seen before with the different handhelds. Of course we can change emulator maybe and upgrade the firmware later on, but it is just unfortunate that these minor mistakes cannot be solved out of the box. But PlayStation 1, beside the overall emulation performance, it's just great. But we do have an audio delay. But when it comes to some arcade stuff, there will be still stuff that we cannot play. When I look into the main, Tekken and Killer Instinct will be just unplayable. But when you're looking at some other stuff, like let's say Street Fighter, or let's say just another, let's say different main game, they run just great on this. And I love this D-pad, man. But do I have a brain fart or what? Yeah, I think it's more like a personal handicap. Yeah, it was a personal handicap. But beside that, this is absolutely amazing handheld, man, for the D-pad. But one of the cool games you can just play on this is, of course, Game Boy Advance. Man, this thing is such a cool device when it comes to, let's say, the form factor. And of course, Game Boy Advance should be played on this. Ooh, is it me or did I just see a minor, let's say, drops in frame? But beside that, seems to be working just fine. But if you want to experience, let's say, the 8-bit and 16-bit stuff, that runs just perfect on this. The biggest challenge will be PlayStation Portable and some other stuff. But out of the box, the Sega 32X also works just fine, or the Mega Drive, or Genesis. All of the stuff will work just fine. Well, let's deep dive through the RetroArch in the other emulator section. And let's start off with some Sega Dreamcast. Yeah, this is a system that is absolutely awesome to actually be playing on a device like this. That's cool to see that we actually have the option now with many devices, including the RG35XXSP has the option to play these games. So choosing the Live 2 game most of the time is simply to do of this. This is Justin Gray's test bench. On the right top corner we can see the frames per second. So dipping to 53 seconds, frames per second. Ooh, dipping there to 35. But the overall performance is quite cool when it comes to, let's say, the Dreamcast emulator. So I did notice a lot of difference when it comes to the audio quality. Pressing the M button in RetroArch, we're finding still the quick load, quick save option, but it is slightly different, which you can just actually see over here. Okay, so let's try Tekken 3 again, but this time we're going to be using through the RetroArch emulator section. Let's see if it still struggles with the audio. No, that's so much better. So when it comes to, let's say, the audio quality, it doesn't have the same issue that we have seen before. So that is absolutely great. Another system I wanted to check out is N64, and this is going to be a hit or miss, simply because many different reasons of the, let's say, overall support. Here you can see that the emulator has been set right because we don't have an analog stick, and this is one of the reasons we just actually need one, so they should implement it in version number 2. But so far, my version seems to be working fine, but we cannot use the steering because this has been set to the analog stick and not D-pad. So out of the box, this game is unplayable. So let's try a different game on the N64 emulator through RetroArch. And you can hear there is some crackling noise in the audio due to the overall emulation performance. It's not perfect, but it seems to be that the games are playable. So it's hitting 45 frames per second. It's quite steady at the moment. And again, what depends on what kind of game we're going to be playing on this. Oh, massive dip. But in my opinion, I think it's still playable if you don't really mind the audio itself. But how about Nintendo DS? So for me, I don't really like emulating these things on here. So with the shoulder buttons, we can change the display, so you can just see we can switch between the top and down part. But the other problem is that the overall system is it not working like it should be the first time, but now it does. So let's get into the game. But we can just mess around with the settings every single time if you want to get, let's say, into the game, switching the screens. But some of the games don't really need a second screen, which you can just actually see over here. So what we can do is just enjoy yourself and using it with one screen. So not every game will be unplayable, but some games really need to switch between the game, let's say, displays, and I personally don't like that at all. But the emulation performance seems to be working just fine. So that's just great. Let's see, we have auto modes. Let's be honest, this is just unplayable. Look at how tiny this display now is. Pressing the menu button will give you a different emulator across the build room through joystick and not RetroArch itself. Alright, so pushing this thing to the limit with another system is of course Atomic Wave. Atomic Wave is just a very difficult emulator to be played on, let's say, these low powered devices. Not that this thing is like super low powered, but it's really demanding. But getting through the game, we have a lot of frame dips. So this device is absolutely great if you want to plug it into your television. So if you're bringing this in with you with an HDMI cable, you can just plug it in. I'm using an HDMI mini to the normal HDMI converter. You can use different cables, or different methods for that. But it works absolutely great. You can just play your games fairly easy. Everything will be automatically transferred to your television. Let's see what happens if you're going to be plugging it out in the game itself. It will sometimes take a little bit of time to get it back to the display, but it is highly possible that it doesn't work in this case. So let's plug this thing back in. And let's see if it will continue the game itself. So if you want to use a normal screen, you need to go back to the main menu, and then you're going to be rebooting it with the normal display. However, they absolutely nailed it when it comes to this new version. This is absolutely a great product, and I really love to check it out later on with some more in-depth, let's say, testing. I just want to do a quick unboxing and the first experience how it actually works out. But I can tell you I'm quite positive about it. Everything, the D-pad. The only complaint I can think have at this point is having no analog stick, because you really notice with N64, and you will see with different games in the future, that we do have a problem with that. But beside that, they absolutely did a great job with the RG35XXSP. Let me know in the comments what kind of games would you love to see me trying on this. And it would be great if you subscribe, and see you in the next video.